It's Mackey here for Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They've been around for over 100 years, helping business owners maximize the success of their business through risk management tools and resources. It's like having a great offensive line for your business, just thwarting off risks and things that could potentially cost your bottom line. Find out how Federated can help your business by going to federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours.
We got Kevin Seifert, ESPN.com, sad Packer fan Spencer Tollickson at 11, and we will check in with Packer post-game radio as well in a couple minutes here. Mackey,
now launching.
Ignition sequence start.
Mackey and Judd.
We'll see you. Liftoff.
We get things rolling with the opening bell.
Want to ring the bell?
Doesn't matter now. It matters when, at the end of the year, that's the only time I care about it. Right now, we're just trying to compile as many wins together as we can and add them up at the end of the year.
Oh, technically it doesn't matter, but come on, Mike Zimmer.
That was, by the way, that question elicited from Brad Childress a few years ago. The response, I drank a vodka the size of your head. That was the same question. How does it feel to be alone in first place for the first time in your coaching career?
The Packers have lost 3 straight. The Vikings have won 5 straight, so they're up by a game. Here's the most important thing. Division will be nice, and we'll see what happens. Packers-Vikings this weekend. The Vikings are now 3 games up on a playoff spot. So they're 7-2. All of the wild card teams, the aspiring wild card teams on the outside looking in at 5 losses. So barring an epic meltdown, knock on wood, knock on wood.
There you go. Thanks for jinxing it. Yeah.
This is sort of happening, this playoff thing. And I think this is all happening much quicker than most people thought in this town.
And we are, I think, going to get this question on a regular basis now. Is this for real? I would say 2 things. One is, let's wait for Sunday when the Vikings play the Packers, and if they win that game, they will be essentially 3 games up in the division. But the other thing is, it is for real in one sense, in my mind, definitely. Defense. This defense is a top 5 defense. This defense has shown you week in and week out everything it possibly can that now leads you to believe that this is an elite defense. And by the way, they are now, after the win in Oakland yesterday, number 1 in the National Football League in points allowed per game in the good. 17.1 points per game. This is the type of defense that we haven't seen in this town in ages.
Well, you bring up the question, the is this for real question. I always hate those sort of black and white. Is it this or is it this? There are shades of contention in the NFL. You've got the New England Patriots at the top. I would put the Arizona Cardinals and the Cincinnati Bengals kind of right below the Patriots. As far as is it for real the Vikings are a playoff team? Yes. I mean, just look at the landscape right now with less than 2 months to go in the regular season, month and a half to go. So I think what we're finding out after the first 9 games, we spent most of the season trying to figure out, what is this offense? Is it Adrian Peterson? Is this a take the training wheels off Teddy Bridgewater? Well, the answer is it's Adrian Peterson's offense. Bridgewater has been mostly mediocre to bad the last few weeks, and we can talk a lot more about him as we go forward here on the show. But defense and running the ball and a quarterback who just sort of has to not screw it up is a formula that's worked for the Ben Roethlisberger Steelers 10 years ago.
Yep.
I was going to say the Joe Flacco Ravens. It also worked with the Trent Dilfer Ravens.
Trent Dilfer Ravens won a Super Bowl off
the
that.
Russell Wilson Seahawks. This is a formula that a lot of teams use to win divisions, get to the playoffs.
Yep.
It's not maybe the ideal formula, but when you have a young quarterback, it's the only formula that you can really go with. This is what they have to do right now.
I would say this. It's a good formula. It's not a sexy one. You're not watching these games right now thinking to yourself, oh man, high-flying Vikings, this is fun. However, if you want to get to the postseason and win, I would almost rather have a formula that starts with defense, because if you can stop teams, you'll be fine. The Vikings showed yesterday, in my mind, what they did yesterday in, I believe, the third or fourth, when Blair Walsh missed that 39-yard field goal. And you said to yourself, okay, if you followed the Vikings for a long time, Phil, this is problematic. Oakland's going to drive down that field, and they're going to score a touchdown, and something's going to go wrong.
There's going to be a bunch of 15-yard penalties.
And what happened? 3 and out. So if you can base this around the fact that your defense is good, that's a huge place to start.
I would say it's an odd feeling to watch the Vikings defensively and not have this creeping fear in the back of your head. Oh, when's the other shoe going to drop on this? What's going to happen here? When's the quarterback? When's Derek Carr going to hit a 50-yard pass? Or when's there going to be some boneheaded penalty?
Mm-hmm.
This team doesn't really commit penalties relative to the rest of the league, and they're very un-Vikings-like. It's just a very un-Vikings-like team.
It's a new world.
Ding, ding.
Adrian Peterson is loose.
See ya.
I don't think anybody will catch up to Adrian Peterson.
Wow.
It's a Viking touchdown of 80 yards.
Hey!
Chris Myers did it not once, but at least twice or three times.
Copyright.
Adrian Peterson, yeah, let's hear it again, so if you can hear it.
Adrian Peterson is loose.
See ya.
I don't think anybody will catch up to Adrian Peterson. It's a Viking touchdown of 80 yards.
Wow!
203 yards, including that touchdown run to ice the game late for Peterson. I'll give him this. We all, or at least I did, speaking for myself, you expected at the age of 30 that he would slow down somewhat. I don't think he's as quick as he used to be. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He has still been the focal point of this offense, and it's given the Vikings time to allow Bridgewater to either struggle or work through things. But I said in week one, you've got to make a decision on whose offense this is. Well, right now, it's Adrian Peterson's offense.
We're sitting here. The Vikings are 7-2.
Yeah.
They've got a bunch of competitive teams on their schedule. Packers and Seahawks and Cardinals. Can we please be done with Chris Myers' purgatory?
Oh, I know.
Okay, look at the schedule and tell me, is there a game left that deserves a Chris Myers, Rondé Barber broadcast booth? Every game this season except for the Tom Brenneman game and the CBS games, I think have been Chris Myers' purgatory games. The Vikings, I feel like Vikings and Raiders yesterday shouldn't have been a Chris Myers purgatory game. Couple teams, playoff contention on the
Lynch
rise.
and Burkhardt?
I don't care.
Perhaps they're not too bad.
How about nobody? How about just watch the game and come to your own conclusions on the play-by-play?
Vikings fan will be far more offended, I think, though, on Sunday when they get Buck and Aikman because they default to hating Buck so much. But I'm with you. Enough of Chris Myers. Getting Chris Myers means you're not relevant. At 7-2, you have to be considered relevant.
No, they're not a flashy 7-2. They're sort of like whenever the Titans are 7-2 or the Jaguars are 7-2.
Yeah.
It's not appointment viewing. They're on Monday Night Football, and it's like, the Titans the Titans and Jaguars are playing this Thursday night against each other. It's still going to do a 9 share, by the way, on NFL Network. So maybe until the Vikings become sexier and throw the ball better, and just
it's not going to happen for 2015.
Stuck with Chris Myers until the end of time.
I just don't want it anymore. I've been calling for an end to Chris Myers for a long time.
Let's do something here. Let's check in. So I've looked at the spread. There's an early line out for this game, Packers and Vikings.
Yep.
I think if this spread were set a few weeks ago, it would have been Packers as road favorites by maybe 3, 4, or 5. If you took the 6-0 Packers before they lost at Denver, at Carolina, and now home against the Lions for the first time in 24 years, and just look like kind of a train wreck, they can't get anything going offensively, I'm pretty sure Vegas would have said 5.5 point road favorites for the Packers.
Yeah.
We are on footballlocks.com and other websites have this as a pick'em game at TCF Bank Stadium, which means Packers slight favorites, but the home field advantage gives the Vikings an advantage for the pick'em. So just a lot of things are happening poorly at Lambeau Field, Green Bay. Let's check in right now with Green Bay Packers post-game radio, WSSP, and see how they're handling things.
Go, Pack, go! The Packers right now trying to win this thing. And
Blocked. Was it blocked?
Yeah, it was blocked. And that's it. The Green Bay Packers fall to the Detroit Lions by a score of 18-16. And for the first time since 1991, the Detroit Lions came into Green Bay and they walk away with a victory.
Go, Pack, go!
I need some answers because this is embarrassing to walk around in my Packer gear in Louisiana. Everybody wants to call me a Packers fan, and then they want to lay it on me real good on this Sunday. The Packers lost 3 in a row to the Lions, the actual worst team in the league. Come on, man.
Go, Pack, go!
Oh, Packers post-game. Oh, Packers post-game.
They're reeling, man. They want changes.
I have a Twitter account pulled up at JS Comments. These are actual comments from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel website, pulled from Packers post-game columns and articles. Watched Rodgers pregame. He was smiling, laughing, and joking with other players. Didn't strike me as an attitude he should be having.
Ooh.
I wouldn't mind finishing 6-10 if MM and TT are shown the door, Mike McCarthy and Ted Thompson.
Fire the GM and coach.
A-Rod needs to choose Munn or the Packers. It's your gal or the football team.
It's Olivia. That's her. Okay.
He put up a terrible performance for the third week in a row, and he's worried about a drunk fan in the crowd. What a baby, Aaron Rodgers. Any chance Favre suits up Thanksgiving night?
Okay. That just hit on what I can't wait for. I want to see the Vikings win on Sunday so bad because they're going to officially retire Favre's number 4 on Thanksgiving night at Lambeau Field.
Well, that's happening, huh?
Yeah. Can you imagine if they're on, a 4-game losing streak?
That'd be pretty fun.
And Favre comes back? And then they're going to ask Favre, what do you think's wrong? And he's not going to be able to help himself.
Here's more comments. I still hate Favre for the way he ended with the Packers, but wouldn't blame Rodgers for wanting to bail as well. I wish the Packers had an owner, all caps, and this crap everybody owns garbage. End this crap, I think he meant. Spelling errors shocking on the JS comments Twitter account.
I'm drunk.
We need one owner who will hold every single person accountable. But hey, all 400,000 of you get to go and have free bagels once a year at Lambeau Field. It's great.
You people have had 2 quarterbacks, essentially, since 1992. You've won Super Bowls. You've been relevant almost every single season. And now something goes a little bit wrong, and they all want to just fire the coach, fire the GM. Aaron Rodgers isn't taking it seriously.
By the way, I think, what's Rodgers, like 30, 31?
Yeah, it's run 30.
Early 30s, 30, 31. Let's call him 31 years old, something like that. I think Vikings fans would trade Teddy Bridgewater's next 7 years for Aaron Rodgers. So if you want to sell your Aaron Rodgers stock across the border, I'll buy some. I'll buy some Aaron Rodgers stock. I love it. They're 6-3 and already burning down the stadium.
I love that. This, you know what? Too many chefs in the kitchen. We got to have an owner now. Yeah, right. Okay.
We have Kevin Seifert, ESPN.com at 9:30. Spencer Tollickson, the sad Packers fan. Also the Gopher basketball radio analyst. He'll join us at 11 o'clock. We can just play sad violin music behind that for like 10 minutes. But let's come back. The Vikings are playing a style of football that's very unfamiliar unless you're older than I am for sure, and maybe even a little older than you are.
That's a scary thing.
This is very very new to many of us. Mackey and Judd.
Mackey and Judd are back.
Well, that didn't take you long, did it?
On 1500 ESPN. Ready for another chance to earn points and score some amazing prizes? Your 1500 ESPN rewards. Listen and win code is revealed now.
Collect points and grab prizes. 1,500 ESPN awards, 1,500ESPN.com. 100 points can be yours today. Just have to get that code word in there, and you can use the points to enter to win a Cirque du Soleil fall prize pack, including headphones and a car charger. Today's code word for 9:15, FIRST. F-I-R-S-T, first, as in first place. Enter correctly. Get rewarded for listening. It's just that easy. 1,500 ESPN awards, 1,500ESPN.com.
Oh, we almost got duped by this.
This happened to me. In fact, I almost got duped when the Adrian Peterson trade rumors were going around. Do you remember? I saw a fake account that said he'd been traded to Dallas, and you saved my bacon.
Well, this is why if you're a Twitter geek, you got to create lists on TweetDeck. So if Adam Schefter sends a tweet out that doesn't show up in your NFL list, if it shows up in some other list, it might be fake. So some national guys are retweeting it's at Uncle Chaps, but his name is Adam Schefter on here. It's like some guy with 5,000 followers who poses as Adam Schefter. So this is the report, but it's not really a report because it's a fake account.
Yeah.
Broncos to sign Tim Tebow as early as this afternoon, according to Mort Report and me. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being epic shock, like the highest magnitude of shock, and 1 being, how shocked would you be if Peyton Manning were out? He's got the torn foot ligament, and they did sign at Tim Tebow.
9.5.
You'd be shocked? I think it's more like a 5 for me. I wouldn't be that shocked.
9.5. If John Elway, who went to such great lengths that he did to basically watch Tebow win football games and say, this guy can't be my quarterback, if John Elway signed off on bringing Tim Tebow back, it'd be a 9.5 for me. He worked way too hard to get rid of
Full
Tim
circle,
Tebow,
man.
to actually bring Tim Tebow back now.
Who's the last quarterback before Peyton Manning to lead the Broncos to a playoff victory?
I know.
Tim Tebow.
Hey, his best game came at the Metrodome against the Vikings. I saw it. Oh, was it ugly.
Hey, it's been about 5 minutes. We should do this again. We don't want to go too long between checking in with Packers post-game radio. How are they handling things across the border?
I know a lot of you want to make changes. I know a lot of you want to see people fired at this point. I know there's the talk of please bring back Joe Philbin, get rid of Tom Clemens, McCarthy take the play calling back, Dom Capers has to go, Ted Thompson needs to be fired immediately for the lack of talent they put on this field. Did we overestimate this team?
Yeah, you did.
Go, Pack, go.
Oh, man. There are a lot of ledge jumpers across the border right now. A lot of ledge jumpers.
Anybody that thinks that people overreact in this town to the Vikings, all you have to do is watch the Packers lose a few games. And as I told you before, you talk about a spoiled fan base. They've had some bad teams since 92, but it's few and far between. You've had, count them, 2 quarterbacks basically. Unless Rodgers is hurt, which he was a couple of years ago, you've had 2 starting quarterbacks. And I love the fact that their default position, 3 losses. We draw the line. We lost to Detroit. Fire Ted Thompson, fire McCarthy, fire the offensive coordinator, fire somebody. Although I will say the Detroit Lions so desperately wanted to give the Packers that game, and the Packers wouldn't let them.
Yeah, what happened? Calvin Johnson's out there. He's doing the Brandon Bostic thing where the ball bounces off your hands. Was he supposed to touch that ball?
I think he's supposed to grab the ball.
Looked like it was flying out of bounds. I don't know.
I think he was the hands team guy that was supposed to grab the ball. But the Detroit Lions are the Lions again, and they still beat the Packers.
That was headed to be the most Lions loss in the history of the Lions. Of all the ways the Lions have blown games, of all the scenarios, you just wiped out your front office. No one expects you to come. I thought that was going to be an Aaron Rodgers revenge game for sure.
Mm-hmm.
This is everyone's down on the Packers. He's going to go throw for 350 and 4 touchdowns. And they're going to have backup quarterback in. Joel Stave still their backup quarterback? Who's the Packers? Tolzien. I get the...
Stave's the
he's the
Badger
current
quarterback.
They're all interchangeable.
Currently.
Brooks Bollinger.
Tolzien is the Packers backup quarterback right now.
I thought for sure revenge game for the Packers. And when it turned out to be the opposite, and the Lions still almost found a way to give the Packers...
The Lions were desperately trying to say, no, you take it. You take it. We don't want to win. And the Packers wouldn't let them.
The best compliment I can give the Vikings right now is... They have so many things that drive you crazy still in the games. Bridgewater refusing to throw the ball forward for like 90 minutes yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he didn't throw unless he was throwing the ball away. I don't think he threw a pass 3 yards past the line of scrimmage in the second and third quarters. It was play action. He had all day to throw, probably 9 or 10 different times. Didn't throw the ball down the field. Offensive line is still kind of a sieve. At least in half the dropbacks, it seems. There's all these little things that kind of... Andrew Sendejo getting torched a couple times.
Touchdown pass by Kyle Rudolph on the play in the end zone.
Despite all of these things, this team still grinds out win after win after win. It's the best compliment I can give them. They overcome adversity more than any team in recent Vikings history.
Mm-hmm.
And they just sort of... They find ways to lean on their defense and get it done just enough offensively so far.
And that's the difference, in my opinion. And this is a style of play that we haven't seen from the Vikings on a consistent basis probably since the 70s. In the 80s, the Vikings had some defenses that were pretty good. But you name me the last time that you watched a Vikings team and you said to yourself, if they're going to win this game, it's going to be with defense. Starting in 98, my contention is this. The Vikings fan base, the makeup of the Vikings fan base changed greatly because of Moss. In 98. And the reason was because so many people said, this is so much fun to watch. We got a quarterback that can throw a ball to an elite wide receiver. It's a high-flying offense. Yeah, the defense might bend a lot, but this offense can score points with teams game for game for game. And really starting at that point and until the last couple of years, what did you see? You saw defenses. How many times did they break down at the end? Something went wrong. Big completions. And you said to yourself, oh, man, yeah, that stunk. Well, the game was fun to watch. The end result wasn't fun to watch. This is a case where the games aren't fun to watch, but this defense is so stout and is so good. And I really don't think I would say that we haven't seen a defense this good since sometime in the 80s, and we haven't seen a defense consistently this good since Grant in the 70s.
Well, I'm just thinking my lifetime, so going back to the mid-'80s, I can't remember a Vikings defense that was in the conversation for best in the NFL. They've been in the conversation for best run defense in the NFL. They had the best statistical run defense in the NFL for like 3 straight years.
Mm-hmm.
Under 80 yards per game, Pat Williams, the Williams Wall, Kevin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2008, they traded for Jared Allen. You had Jared Allen and Ray Edwards, so they were rushing the passer.
Mm-hmm.
But they always had questionable secondary members.
Right.
You had Antoine Winfield, but then it was like Mediu Williams and Cedric Griffin, Marcus McCauley, all these sort of patchwork guys in the secondary.
Mm-hmm.
A couple third-round picks, fifth-round, just guys who just didn't work out. I can't remember in my lifetime a Vikings defense that was in the conversation for best in the NFL. And they are, if I think I saw this right, if the Cincinnati Bengals allow at least 13 points tonight, the Vikings will still have the best scoring defense in the NFL going into Week 11 next week. It's so weird to watch this. Is it a product in some ways of playing outside and it's just a little bit different, or is it all Mike Zimmer? Are they going to be like this when they're in a dome and it's more cozy and you're playing winter games in 75 degrees?
I think they will be.
I think it's more of a coach mindset than a climate thing or a weather thing.
This defense also has some really nice pieces and components to it, but largely to me, what we're seeing is this is why Zimmer said last year, you've got to do what I tell you to do. I don't want you freelancing. You might think that you have a good idea, but you don't. If you look at how this defense runs, it's got some really nice players and pieces to it, but what's the biggest thing? This defense, it works. It flat out works. And for the most part, this team will give up, let's say, 3 big pass plays per game, but they don't get consistently gouged. I loved yesterday. In fact, I think it was our buddy Myers who said something along the lines of, as Oakland moved down the field late in that game, the Vikings are going to be cautious here on defense, go into sort of a prevent defense. And Myers and Barber quickly realized they didn't change at all. I love the fact that Zimmer kept his defense. What drove you nuts about Leslie and even Childress' defenses before that with Les and Tomlin? If they had a lead late in the fourth quarter, they would try and basically stop the big play. And so they would give up all these huge plays underneath. Yesterday, I thought it was fantastic. Zimmer doesn't change it. He doesn't care. He doesn't say, okay, I'm getting sort of concerned here, and I don't trust my players, because he knows the scheme works.
So as a fan, maybe we can throw this out to Twitter. If you want to tweet us at Phil Mackey or at 1500 ESPN Judd. Is this fun to watch? They're winning games. They're 7-2. But for the most part, if I'm gauging my timeline and some of the live reaction yesterday, social media reaction, most Vikings fans were tortured for the majority of that game. Rudolph dropping a pass and Sendejo getting gashed a couple times over the top, missing out on plays where he could have knocked a ball away or intercepted a pass. And Bridgewater isn't progressing like David Carr, like Derek. He actually is progressing like David Carr. Like Derek Carr, like Blake Bortles. He's not. I mean, something has kind of plateaued or gone the other way with him. Maybe he was still foggy from the concussion. Yeah. It's possible, but if they are the Wisconsin Badgers basketball team of the NFL, if it's just sort of grinded out 23-20, they did score 30 yesterday. Only they had the kick return touchdown, so it was like 23 points offensively. Are you cool? I mean, is that fun to watch as a fan, or does it matter? Does it matter if it's fun for 3 hours if they get the win at the end? Is sort of the question.
Who cares, right?
Yeah, I mean, what? I don't really have a horse in the race, I guess.
If you want style points and great quarterback play, that would be fun and fantastic. But if you came to me at the start of the season and said this team can either be pretty good offensively, the defense will be average, and they'll still win some games, or do you trust something that starts with a defense that's really good? I go defense. In this league now, when it's all about shutting down quarterbacks, if you can contain offenses, we'll start with that. And they clearly had an idea that the Peterson combination at this point would work. And that's why the interesting thing that I think that they've happened upon here too is this. Where do you sort of halt mission on development a little bit? Bridgewater, Rhodes, there's a lot of young guys on this team that you would like to see improve, but do you continue to try to get them to improve, or do you say to yourself, we're 7-2.
Okay, but
let's do what wins?
But you're saying that you can't do both.
I'm saying it's difficult to do both with some players because schematically you have to make decisions based on what's best to try and win games.
And see, I disagree with that premise because I think Bridgewater is going to get a lot more experience in huge games down the stretch, even if he's not being asked to throw the ball 40 times. He's being asked, hey, you're not going to be the one leading this charge all the time. Mm-hmm. You're going to be asked to do some things late in games, but just don't screw this up right now. As long as the defense holds the team under 20 points, you don't really have to do a whole lot. There's going to be a rushing touchdown in there somewhere. You learn a lot playing the Seahawks and the Cardinals and the Packers in meaningful games. And unless they blow this 3-game lead they have on the aspiring wildcard teams, a playoff game. So that's development in itself. But, it's been about 7 minutes. Meanwhile, over across the border in Green Bay, let's check back in with Packers post-game radio, see how the folks across the border are handling things after yesterday. Not good.
I need some answers because this is embarrassing to walk around in my Packer gear in Louisiana. Everybody wants to call me a Packers fan, and then they want to lay it on me real good on this Sunday. The Packers lost 3 in a row to the Lions, the actual worst team in the league. Come on, man.
Go, Pack, go!
Oh, man, such a rough life over there. Super Bowls, Rodgers, Favre, 2 quarterbacks in 20 years, 6-3, game out of the division lead. It really
Fire everybody,
it's really
man.
time to set it all on fire.
Fire them all.
Kevin Seifert, ESPN.com, his crazy league game of the week, and some breaking quarterback injury news when we come back with Kevin, too. Mackey and Judd.
Phil Mackey, Judd Zolgad.
You're both very special people.
Mackey and Judd on 1500 ESPN.
All right, let's start here. Kevin Seifert joins us on Mondays at 9:30 from ESPN.com. Let's start with some breaking news from your colleague, Adam Schefter. About an hour ago, sent out the tweet that Peyton Manning, we knew that he's been banged up. He had some kind of a rib cage thing. Now the foot injury is worse than expected. It's a torn plantar fascia, which might help explain the 5 for 20 with 4 interceptions yesterday in a game where he broke the all-time yardage record, but then was benched for Brock Osweiler, Kevin.
Or it could just give the very convenient excuse for the Broncos to sit Peyton Manning down, given the kind of performances he had yesterday and has had in some other games, without making it look like it was a complete benching either. Because apparently this has been an injury that he has dealt with for a while. It's kind of one of those chronic things. It's not like you can go in and have surgery and miss a week or two. Apparently it's a partial tear, and it's not really healed until it heals after the entire off season, or you tear it completely. So sometimes you hear about guys hoping that it tears completely because then it's a lot less painful and easier to play with. And so, long story short, that might explain a little bit of what's going on. There's clearly some arm strength issues there, but if you can't step into the throw and you can't generate power, that all contributes. But it brings up the very real possibility that Peyton Manning's time, at least in the short term as the Broncos starter, is over, and that their run to the playoffs and this playoff window they have with Peyton Manning and a lot of the veteran defenders that they've signed is going to be in the hands of one Brock Osweiler starting Sunday against the Bears.
Hey, Kevin, on the long list of players in this league who have stuck around a little bit too long, and it's been sad to watch at the end, does what we saw yesterday rank number 1 in watching a guy who's a Hall of Fame quarterback who sets the yardage record on that day look just so pathetic?
Yeah, it's interesting. The natural comparison is Brett Favre that we all saw close up. And the difference there, to me, is for whatever reason, maybe it was all those ankle injuries that Brett had, he couldn't move at all in that last year. And so he was just getting pummeled. And, he's always the guy that's going to try to hold the ball and make a play. And he used to move around a lot, and he couldn't move around anymore. And he was just getting crushed. The hit against the Bills, and then there was a couple other games, eventually the hit that ended his career, really, on the frozen turf at TCF. And that was really tough to watch just from a physical standpoint and think, like, how many years off his life is he losing just by playing this year? And so I don't know that Peyton has gotten beaten up by opponents this year, but it's been tough to watch just knowing what he used to be capable of and what he appears to be capable of now. And I thought Brian Burke, who does advanced analytics stuff for our website, had a really good column last night showing that these things usually happen quick, and we've seen, the Manning, and then we saw Favre. You could be going along just fine one season, and as a Hall of Fame type quarterback, and you come back and your last season is just terrible. And he went back and looked at a bunch of those instances, whether it was Joe Namath or Johnny Unitas or anybody else who finished their career maybe 1 year later than they should have, and the drop-off is tremendous, and it's not always expected or signified in the stats. And so it appears as though that's what Peyton Manning is going through. He got back this year, and his body just never bounced back completely from last year, and at his age, there was already some limitations, and so certainly seems like we're seeing the final season of his career, and you wonder how many more starts he has left as well.
The difference to me is this. The Favre thing was sad to watch, but to his last day, his arm was still great.
Yeah.
As you just said, he didn't have the protection. So he got pummeled, but it wasn't like the arm was gone. Peyton has never had the big arm, but there's something really sad to me about watching a quarterback look this feeble as far as trying to pass the ball. That's the difference between Favre and Manning in my eyes.
Yeah, and maybe sometimes it's just the weather. I mean, last week against Indy, he's in I think they had the roof open, but the weather was and the turf and all that was pretty ideal for throwing the football, and he had a decent game. Yesterday he's in Kansas City on the grass. It's November, and it was not quite the same, and so so maybe he's at the point where he needs everything to be exactly perfectly ideal for him to function as a quarterback. And when you look at the schedule they have coming up, especially Sunday's game in Chicago, who knows what the weather will be there this weekend? It's certainly the time of year where it starts getting bad. That does not seem like a good place to play a guy whose arm is weakening and his foot doesn't allow him to get much power into the throws.
Kevin Seifert, ESPN.com, NFL Nation. We also have the news with the Saints that Rob Ryan, the defensive coordinator, fat and burly and bearded Rex Ryan, as I like to refer to him, he's out.
No way to go through life.
I mean, that guy can put down probably a half plate of buffalo wings a couple times a day. On the Vikings front, Kevin, are you looking at this team as this is a legit force in the NFC? They're sitting here 3 games up on a playoff spot, or are you still in wait-and-see mode? I mean, they're almost certainly going to get to the playoffs unless they completely melt down here in the second half. Or do you think they're still a year, maybe more away from making noise in the NFC? What's your read on this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're legit right now. I mean, the key is to be legit as you're going into the playoffs. There's nothing that's going on to suggest that what they're doing right now is some kind of house of cards, or that there's some kind of connection between the wins they have now and that's not going to exist in the second half of the season. I mean, they're playing pretty well in all 3 phases, well enough that if any one of them falls off, the other 2 probably could pick up. The defense, when you look at the most important stat in defense is points allowed, and they're one of the best teams in the league there. The offense has the NFL's leading rusher, and the special teams has got guys who can return kicks for touchdowns at any given point, whether it's punts or kickoffs, and also a field goal kicker who, as long as you're not kicking from 53 or you're not kicking off tough, soggy Oakland grass, is more than capable of winning a championship for you. And so I think they're a very well-rounded team. That they may not run away with a lot of victories. Yesterday was one where they closed it out and won by more than a few points. It hasn't happened too often, but you look at them, but you also look at what's around them, and there's nothing to suggest that right now that they're gonna fold, or what they've done so far is anything other than legit.
Has there been a time in the period in which you've closely watched the Vikings, Kevin, when you remember this defense being this complete? It's been good against the run at times, but do you ever remember watching a Vikings team and thinking to yourself, they could win this game solely based on their defense?
No, I remember the first year of Mike Tomlin, how much improvement they made. That would have been 2006. I mean, they had the last year or so of the Mike Tice regime, the defense was really bad, and Tomlin came in with his approach and changed everything up and got a lot of players to play better than they had before. And so the change from 05 to 06 was dramatic, but I don't think that they were as much of killers as this defense is right now, in terms of having guys at every level who can make plays, but also we're not, as a group, not really giving up a whole lot. I mean, they haven't had any games where they gave up, 35, 40 points, at least as a defense. And so that they're very sound and they're smart, and what they've really done, and we kind of almost joked about this when Zimmer got hired. It was as if they talked about, he talked about himself, and they talked about him as if he was sort of a defensive savant, that like he was not doing anything different than anybody else, but he had this special way of calling a defensive game and a special way of teaching defensive players that was better than everyone else. And so I kind of laughed at that, because I don't know that there's really, if that really exists or not, but whatever it's been, Zimmer has put the Zimmer touch on this defense. It's happened everywhere else he's gone, and sure enough, it's happened here as well.
Kevin, we do this every week. Let's fire this up, Judd.
It's a crazy league. It's a crazy... I'm no good at this. Let's bring in Kevin Seifert and have him tell us just why this last week in the NFL proves it's a crazy league.
All right, give it to us. Your crazy league game of the week, Kevin Seifert.
I don't know if we can go anywhere further than Green Bay, which is where we were last week as well, where I got completely wrong. I think last week I said everyone should calm down about how the Packers had lost to the Broncos and the Panthers, given how good they are. But, as everyone knows, the Lions had not won at Lambeau Field for almost 2 decades. There's only a couple guys on the Lions roster who were even alive when it happened, or at least could remember when it happened. And in covering the NFC North for so long, there's been so many years when the Lions have brought legitimately good teams to Lambeau that you thought actually had a reasonable chance to break the streak, and they didn't do it. Crazy things would happen, or the Packers would just, the curse would be extended. And so there was no reason to think that yesterday's game was anything other than a get-healthy game for the Packers. Lions were 1-7. They just already fired their offensive coordinator and offensive line coach, and then this past week they fired the general manager and the team president. And probably the only reason Jim Caldwell didn't get fired is because they had to have somebody coach the team for the rest of the season, and already fired half the offensive staff, and there just physically wouldn't be enough people left. So I don't know that anyone thought the Lions had a chance. They shouldn't have had a chance. The Packers, to think that they had, it took them so long just to score a touchdown against the Lions defense has been terrible all year. To think that their receivers basically got shut down man-to-man, none of those things could possibly have been projected, and that's why that was easily the craziest outcome of the weekend.
And now, there you go.
Go, Pack, go!
Yeah, things are
How
going.
would you do that?
Things are going well across the border.
People are very upset, Kevin.
And now they get to face the best, like you said, scoring defense in the NFL. And I've tracked this down, you guys. Mike Zimmer defenses going back to Cincinnati in terms of point. This is where his defenses have ranked in terms of points per game allowed: 6th, 24th, 9th, 8th, 5th, 11th, and 1st. So always in the top 10, except for the 1 year in 2010 in Cincinnati, and a couple times top 5.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people look at yardage because that's the easiest way to do it, but that means absolutely nothing if teams are scoring points. And so, yeah, that's people have talked about Peterson's return and Bridgewater's inconsistency, but by far, to me, the story of this team has been the defense and how they, like I said, they make plays at every level.
Yep.
Thank you, Kevin.
Great stuff, Kev.
Okay, guys.
Talk to you next week.
Kevin Seifert, ESPN.com. We need to have an emergency accountability session when we come back here.
Really?
Yep.
It's big stuff.
Mackey and Judd.
On me or you?
I think just on me, but maybe on both of us. And
right.
You're going to have to be the judge on this one.
I'm intrigued.
Mackey and Judd now continue.
Put your game face on. Let's go.
On 1500 ESPN.
We've still got a couple weeks left for you to turn your beard into beer. It's No Shave November. You can head to any of the 3 town hall locations and make a donation to get your No Shave November beer card. That'll get you $2 pints the rest of the month. Still 2 weeks left to cash those in. Proceeds all benefit the Institute of Prostate and Urologic Cancers at the University of Minnesota. Details are at 1500ESPN.com. Keyword shave. And, of course, don't forget to get to 1500ESPN.com and vote for your favorite Beard Brigade team. Team Mackey and Judd would have to be your favorite, clearly. Vote for us, would you?
What you got there, Phil?
All right.
Emergency accountability session intrigued me.
Yep, so we keep track of our predictions and write that down now. And we do this for a reason, because there's no point in making predictions and write that down on Friday if they're just going to go out into the ether and not to be seen again. We should keep track of them, go back, and mostly laugh at how incorrect we were on these predictions, right?
Yes.
Let's be honest.
Especially me.
Well, I said something on September 18th, and write that down.
Okay.
I said the Broncos in 2015 will remind us of the 2010 Minnesota Vikings. Now, the records are definitely different. The Broncos are, what are they, 7-2? Yeah, they're 7-2.
Yeah, they've lost 2 games now.
So they're probably going to make the playoffs, although now, if Brock Osweiler is starting the rest of the year, who knows? They might just go into a tailspin. That's a really good defense, though. They can still win games with that defense if they can just score 17 points.
Yes, much like the team here.
But I present to you Brett Favre versus Peyton Manning in 2010. All right, you guys are going to have to be the judge and the jury on this. Do I get a base hit for this or not, okay?
All right, go ahead.
Peyton Manning, I'm going to go one by one here down the line for these numbers. Peyton Manning completion percentage, 60%, 59.9%. Brett Favre, 60.6%. Very close, within 1%, about a 0.5% off.
Yep.
Right? Brett Favre, touchdowns to interceptions, 11 touchdowns, 19 interceptions in 2010. Peyton Manning, 9 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. So almost a 2-to-1 ratio of interceptions to touchdowns.
You said
right?
17 already.
Leads the league with 17.
Oh, my gosh.
In 9 games. Favre had a couple more games, but the totals are similar.
All right.
Quarterback rating. Peyton Manning, 67.6. Brett Favre, 69.9. So both slightly below 70 quarterback ratings. Now, Brett Favre went 5-8. Peyton Manning went 7-2 because the Vikings didn't have a defense in 2010.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning has a defense that's been propping him up the whole season so far.
I'm not sure how Dave feels about this. My initial inclination is to say if you had said on September 18th that Peyton Manning's 2010 was going to be like Brett Favre's.
Okay, but it's all inclusive.
I think you're...
The quarterback is a large part of why that prediction was made.
But didn't you say that the teams would be the same?
Look at you. You do this all the time,
didn't
don't you?
You say that? No,
it's
this
always
is not.
Nitpicking the baseball whisperer, nitpicking these amazing predictions, prophetic predictions.
I call BS right there. I'm the guy last week that defended you on Aaron Hicks and said that was a fantastic.
Okay, that's true.
You came on.
That's true, you did.
You came on a day before he was traded and said they're looking to shop him, and they traded him. And Harrigan's the guy that said, "Oh no, you didn't do this. Oh, you used sources." I said, "Who cares? You were right." All I'm saying is if I want to split hairs here a little bit, which I need to because my batting average is so poor.
Yeah, but your batting average isn't helped by decreasing mine. Like, just because you're hitting 150 doesn't mean that when Albert
people
Pujols
down makes me feel way better.
All right, so you are the equivalent of, you are Aaron Hicks. No, you are Danny Santana scrapping for a single, rooting against Miguel Sano. Because if Miguel Sano pops up, then
hold on a second. That would mean that you're Sano. You're Luke Hughes. And I'm Santana.
Okay. That's probably more fitting, yes.
Dave?
I got to side a little bit more with Judd on this one. Now, Phil, there's still time.
Come on.
There's still time. Okay? If the tailspin happens and the Broncos say, even if they make the playoffs, but they make it as a wild card, and get bounced in the first round. But if they end up still winning this division, I'm sorry, we cannot give it to you. But Judd is spot on. When you could have said Manning and Favre will be identical, then you would have nailed it to this point.
Yeah,
but at this stage, we can't give it to you yet.
I think in the description of that, write that down, I included a lot of Favre and Manning things. If we go back and roll the tape, there's a lot of Manning and Favre in that description, I guarantee you.
All you had to give us was the 2 names instead of the teams.
You guys.
You failed to do so.
So basically, if the Broncos don't lose their next 5 games, then you're not going to give me credit for this.
Well,
it's all about the little things. Isn't that what we heard all spring with Paul Mahler? It's attention to detail.
I like it.
And frankly, your attention to detail by just glossing over the quarterbacks, just saying, "Oh, Vikings and Broncos." You don't acknowledge the quarterbacks leading the teams. I think that's on you, Phil.
It's ridiculous. This is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, and it's your fault.
Case.
I mean, that is a prophetic prediction.
You created this segment.
They are identical players.
You created this segment to pat yourself on the back, and we won't have it. We will not have it.
Look at you, Judd Zulgad, sitting over here batting 130 on the season. For write that down, just casting stones at his teammates.
In the last 2 weeks, he's given you credit. Harrigan has for nothing. He didn't want to give you the Hicks trade either. I gave you that. I'm very, very fair. I'm reasonable in hearing the arguments. I think you called the Hicks trade.
How about, can we put up another one here? How about the Titans will beat the Panthers this week? What about that one? Can I get credit for that one?
I was watching that game yesterday. praying to God that wouldn't happen so I didn't have to hear about it.
It was close for a while. It was like 17-14 in the fourth quarter.
I know.
And then the Panthers went down and scored 5 touchdowns.
Just follow
after that.
my lead and swing for the fences, baby.
That was swinging. I told you that.
Just swing for the fences.
Basically told you Peyton Manning would be unconscious at TCF Bank Stadium like Brett Favre was, and you guys aren't giving me credit.
It is sad to watch, though. It's so sad to watch.
Yeah, it's bad. Do we... Okay, let's talk quarterbacks when we come back here. I have one more thought on state of the Broncos and also a would-you-rather question involving Teddy Bridgewater. Not that would you... Look, you're ridiculous. You're 12 years old.
Yes, I am.
Mackey and Judd.